Hello, Star Wars fans. Hey, you know there are just 73 days until Christmas 2021, and we have a show planned for today. And in the midst of planning, all kinds of news broke out, so we're going to add to it. You get bonus content today. You get bonus content, but I want to bring on our friend Jason Ward from MakingStarWars.net.
Hey.
Let me switch it so you're with your logo. I'm with mine. Look at that. There we
Oh,
go.
hey.
Hey, so a couple of news bits off the front, and just to let folks know, hey, Jason and I have been talking, and we're going to try to collaborate more going forward, and perhaps even on a weekly basis. So today is sort of the kicking off of it, and hopefully, like we do with Meg on Fridays, we'll have Jason on Mondays going forward, and we'll talk Star Wars. What's the latest things or topics that you guys submit, like the one today, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But there are things, there are all kinds of things breaking out, and I want to cover get the low-hanging fruit first. There's the StarWars.net.com, StarWars.com has a new campaign going to sell merchandise. Last year it was called Mando Mondays. This year it's called Bring Home the Bounty. Oh,
That's better. That's better.
well, because they were awful inconsistent about the Monday thing. So I think they learned their lesson about that. And and it's not always Mandalorian themed. And so I do think this is better. What the kind of schedule for this is from now through the end of the year, every Tuesday morning Eastern time, it's like 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern. They're going to be revealing the things that are going for sale. Then on Wednesday, the day following, that you can actually order them. So just to give you guys an idea of what is available today. So it kicked off today. There's a bunch of retro collection items going out from Mandalorian. We've got, and I just kind of went through and looked at them. We've got the Mandalorian and Beskar. You got a Death Trooper, the Armorer, Ahsoka, Bo-Katan, Boba Fett. So that's a great collection of things there. A Black Series Mandalorian Death Watch helmet. Now that's premium. So what happens when that happens is it's like 120 bucks, right? So 120 bucks, that goes on sale tomorrow. And then you keep going. There's like this Ahsoka Tano lightsaber. I was like, ooh, Ahsoka Tano lightsaber. That'd be great for the kids. So I clicked on that, out of stock.
Oh, wow.
So sad for you. So sad.
Sorry, kids.
So yeah, exactly, exactly. And then there's a Build-A-Bear Bantha, which is kind of cute, and that's 53 bucks for a Build-A-Bear stuffed animal.
I should get it and just like hold it on my lap and like never address it. If anybody asks, I don't say anything. I'm just like, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's this Mandalorian helmet down here, and you know, I'm familiar with the Black Series helmets and all of that. This is a Denuo Novo. Not a brand I'm familiar with. Clicked on that bad boy. $700. $700 to get yourself a Mandalorian
Yeah.
helmet. I'm like, well, I'll not be getting myself a Mandalorian a Denuo Novo helmet. That's not happening.
So is a Novos not making them anymore? Isn't that who used to make it? Who used to do that stuff?
I don't know. A lot of them are these Black Series anymore, right?
Yeah.
So people are getting these Black Series helmets, like this Death Watch one, and they're
Right.
around $100, 120, 150.
Yeah.
And I clicked on that one just wondering, and it's $700. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Interesting.
what the deal is. Not sure what that is. Let me see. We've got some chat. I'm falling behind on the chat. Meg calling me a shill. Of course, Meg. You gotta make your money one way or another. Uh,
We have to get like really QVC about it. Wow, Santa, what's the chain code on that bad boy?
Hey, Brent, good to see you here. Kiaran, good to see you again. Dominic, I got some amazing Ahsoka Tano lightsabers for my birthday. Ooh, those are probably better than the $15 ones that are sold out here. But and I've been mentioning to folks, and I'm really not joking about it. If you are wanting to buy Christmas toys for your kids or collectibles, sooner than later. If you wait till Thanksgiving, it's going to be way too late. We've got all these shipping issues going on. All those container ships are backed up. They're not unloading. I mean, it's a big mess. And if you wait, then your presents are going to be sitting out in the ocean on a container. You know, you're just going to be out of luck.
It's fancier. They're imports.
Oh yeah. Ooh, yeah. Fragile. Fragile. So I wanted to share that. So you guys, you can watch for these to be released. It should be weekly. That they'll have these bring home the bounty and look to see what comes out there. Past that, there's another article that's out, and let me see if I can bring it up here. And I mentioned it, Jason and I just were briefly talking about it right before the show started. Alan Horn is leaving at the end of the year. And this isn't a surprise by any means. It's been in the works for some time. The question then is who backfills? Who will they bring in to lead Disney Studios as a chief creative officer? What are your thoughts, Jason?
Yeah, I have no idea who would replace Alan Horn on that. And I'm sure a lot of people in the Star Wars community will be like, will it be Kathleen Kennedy?
Right.
But I kind of don't think so, with her producing so many Star Wars movies that she actually has to straight up produce. So, it's kind of, but I think he's kind of been on his way out for a while, and I would not be surprised if it's super obvious to Disney people who it is.
Yeah, I think Meg is on the Kathy boat. Yes. I wouldn't say it's out of realm of possibility that Kathleen Kennedy would be moved into that position.
Yeah.
I just think that we have a very small window to see through, and
Right.
so our list is very short, and so there are names that kind of pop into your head, but then when you're inside and you're kind of working in that big kind of corporate situation, there are names that are more obvious. And as you just said, there's probably already somebody who's been kind of groomed. Like, I know that when I worked at a major Fortune 500 type company, that there are succession plans. And in these succession plans, you typically name them out at least a year in advance, typically more like 5 years in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And at senior positions, it's part of your regular review cycle that what's your succession plan? Who have you named? What do you have in mind? How are you going to do it? And all of that. So I am absolutely positive that Alan Horn has a succession plan, that person's already being groomed and in position. It might be Kathy, but it's just as likely that it's not.
Yeah, it's most likely like the CEO of Ovaltine or something like that. Some person who we don't really follow. But
and my youngest daughter, Kayla, she can't stay since she's in class. So thanks for stopping in. Go to class. That's fantastic. Thanks for your support, Kayla. And we're going up to Cedar Point. I've got my Cedar Point sweater on today. We're going up to Cedar Point this weekend to spend some time with her. And if you guys aren't familiar with that, it's the roller coaster capital of the world. It's Amusement Park in northern Ohio. And
so, do you go on the roller coasters? Are you into it?
Santa's too heavy.
Okay, Santa's.
I don't fit.
Don't fit.
Right. It's made for younger, thinner people. So, right, we just go and enjoy spending time together and walking around the park. So
Yeah.
it's it's good. I used to when I was younger. Are you a roller coaster enthusiast of any type?
I have a good time, yeah. But I wasn't sure because of like your take on like horror films and like kind of like stuff that's a little too exhilarating. I didn't know if you'd be like, nah, that's not my jam.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, Gray is roller coasters, a big fat nope. I would do it. I would absolutely do it. I just like no. And look, horror not for me, Elvis. No, it's not for Santa. Yeah. Um, so those are sort of the low hanging fruit stories. There's another, I think, a really big one, and Meg. Hopefully, we can get a bonus video from her today or tomorrow for sure. I think this is a really big article, and it's going to be hitting all the YouTubes, right?
Yeah.
I think this article, because of what's in it, is amazing, and so we're going to talk about it here because there is a lot to unpack out of this story. And a huge thanks to Mark Hamilton, who gave it to us today. I saw that he sent it to Jason and I right before we came on. We were both reading this, and then he posted it inside of our Discord and inside Meg's Discord as well. So here we got Kamal Ninjiani. Now, Meg said, I know who he's playing, by the way. My lips are sealed. Your lips are sealed, but what about your fingers? Like, you could type,
Yeah. Aggressive negotiations. Tell us now.
We must know.
Yeah.
But there's some really interesting news. Look, this is a Rolling Stone article, so this isn't just somebody's um, made up idea that they're running with. This has got some really good stuff in it, and we were reading it. Let me see if I can get this to appear a little bit bigger on the screen. Here we go. So they're interviewing him, and they said, "Did you, how did your role in Kenobi come about?" And he's talking about how they all yeah. Who is it, Meg? You must tell us. Meg, could type it. Yeah. No, so they asked him. He said, "Look, all of his uh, agents called, right? So he's got a call and with people he doesn't normally meet, and he got offered this role, and he said right after quarantine, I got to do a job in town. Oh, I made it too big. Let's see if I can make it. There we go." And he said, I didn't know how I could beat the experience I've had, which is a Marvel movie with Chloe Zhao. And Jason and I were talking about this just briefly. This isn't the first time, nor do I think it's the last time we're going to see Marvel actors make their way over to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. And I think Chloe Zhao probably is going over to Star Wars as well. It's like I think there's like a complete intermingling of that of the talent now. I think if you prove yourself on Marvel, you're clearly good to go on Star Wars, and vice versa, probably.
Yeah, I think so too. And we've seen directors kind of being molded, and I think like specifically of Bryce Dallas Howard, right? Bryce is really being groomed to create Star Wars content.
Yeah.
And hopefully she'll get her own movie, but she's featured in director in The Mandalorian. She's also in Boba Fett, right?
Yeah, and she's doing Flight of the Navigator for Disney next, I think.
So they're going to hold on to their talent. It reminds me of the back to the old studio days, where an actor would sign up with a studio like Bob Hope or Elvis Presley, right? And they would get these big names, and then they would just pump them into all their content.
Right.
It really does remind me of that, where these actors are getting kind of signed with a studio, be Disney, and then used by their affiliate brands, uh, be it Lucasfilms or Marvel or Disney itself, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so let's keep going because there's
Yeah.
some good stuff in here. He says, "What was it like on set?" He says, "I had this moment. I'd heard Ian McGregor was super nice. And then we got to know each other and we're just hanging out and talking. There's a weird moment where he's talking to Ewan and he says, action. And he started talking. And I was like, oh, I'm talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, holy crap. Like something just changed.
Yeah.
This is not Ewan McGregor. This is Obi-Wan I'm talking to. My character's supposedly a little bit intimidated by him, which is a big clue, right? He says, my character is a little bit intimidated by him. I was a little bit intimidated, you know? It's freaking Obi-Wan Kenobi. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. So are we thinking? Are we thinking he's the he's Obi-Wan's like pilot? Is he? Not that he's Han Solo. Obviously, I'm not saying that, but is he the Han Solo that Obi-Wan hires to take him where he needs to go? Kind of deal, maybe.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, like a Captain Panaka kind of role. When you look at the actor, and I don't know, it just kind of hit me in this shot, like I got Captain Panaka vibes, and that's just my brain misfiring. Who knows? But
Yeah.
perhaps he could be in that kind of, like, he's intimidated. He's a pilot, but he knows this hero from the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So that's, and anyway, that's where my head is. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because that's the thing about him is that he could be a totally serious Star Wars character, or he could be sort of slapsticky kind of. You know what I mean? It's really hard because of his comedic talents. But he looks really heroic right now. I probably because of the Marvel thing to some extent. But I could totally see him being, some kind of smuggler type, or even a rebel. I mean, yeah, it's so open. I think we're gonna have to Kyber Dart Meg until we get the answer with some truth serum.
I think so too. I was just thinking, like, maybe we could get her on a. You're getting warmer. It's warmer, or a cold. You're dead off. Like, can you give us a warmer, colder kind of hint, Meg? Are we sniffing it all in the right area? Maybe we need to turn and go towards the heat.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and he could be one of the Organas for all we know. I mean, it's totally possible.
Meg, Tatooine is your only clue. There,
so,
she's holding it tight.
Yeah.
And there's more clues here. More clues that I think come in. It says the show is shot on the volume. It's a remarkable virtual set, and. He says, you really feel like you're there. The first scene shot it was Star Wars outside the windows. There's a clue. Windows. Star Wars outside the windows with aliens walking around and ships flying by and all this stuff. Now, I thought aliens and ships and flying by and windows. My head went to Coruscant, but, it could be about anything.
Pancake breakfast, Dex's Diner. That's all it could be. It's settled. We got it. We solved it.
There we go.
It's done.
Done.
Obi-Wan's like, it's been 10 years. I missed those pancakes.
Exactly. I said I did a couple of double takes, right? A couple of takes, and Ewan was like, none of this is real. He says, I knew the windows weren't real, but the walls weren't either. I looked and was like, wow, the walls are projected. And the only thing that was real in the whole room was the desk I was sitting at. There's another clue. Right, so it's a dude who's somewhat intimidated by Obi-Wan. They're in a place. There are windows. There are ships and aliens walking by, and he's sitting at a desk.
Yeah, he's the Coruscant tax man. He's like, Mr. Kenobi, you haven't filed your taxes in 10 years. We need to that.
Right? Or yeah, it's really hard to tell. I go back to like Mandalorian season 2 when they went back and saw Cara Dune. She was sitting at the desk there, and she had her feet up on the desk.
Yeah.
and she was a marshal of Navarro, right?
Right.
It could be something like that. And then it says, he says, I love shooting like that because you don't have to pretend you're in a spaceship flying. It really feels like you're in a spaceship flying through space. Another clue.
Right. Yeah.
Meg, here, now I've learned something, right? You just
Mm-hmm.
got to make really bad guesses, and Meg can't stand it, and she has to tell you what it is, right?
Yeah.
So there we.
Let's just cut it, Meg. Let's just stop all the silliness. Let's just get right to it. Spoil.
Yeah. Put yourself out of your misery. Just let us know what it is. It'll feel so
Join
much.
me. No.
It'll be such a weight off of your shoulders. You'll feel so much more relieved just knowing, phew, okay, got them off of.
See, you don't want to live with secrets, Meg.
Yeah, I know. It's just too much burden. That's probably what keeps making you sick all the time. You know, you feel better if you just let it out.
Just let out the poison. That's what I say. Mm-hmm.
She's back to trying to get us to go off the Tatooine hint.
Yeah, well, when she says that, it makes me think that he goes to Mos Eisley to hire somebody, and he hires him, and he's like, "Oh, you're in Figures Out. You're that guy, really?" But
it's great. So anyway, this is a big article. I think we're going to see a lot of stories running on it in the next few days.
I'm gonna do it today. Nothing else is going on.
Yeah. So speaking of which, what time are you planning to stream today with Rob?
11 Pacific Standard Time.
Okay. So
Yeah.
2:00 Eastern. That'd be 7 in the UK. So you guys have to check that out.
Yeah.
And see if Jason's able to dig anything up between now and then.
You never know. Sometimes you never know.
Sometimes, yeah. And see what sketchy Rob has to say about it. So those are the kind of big stories that kind of broke this morning, and I thought were definitely worth bringing out today. And then what we really wanted to talk about, this came to me through a let me get rid of that. This came to me through a comment on a YouTube video that I'd listed a comment, and somebody replied back to me, and let me just bring it up here. We're going to talk about what's the theme of the sequels, and we're going to break it down movie by movie. Jason and we talked about it yesterday, and we did our homework. So here we are. The question came in this form. It's from Udhav Bhatia. And you guys, this is what I want to try to encourage is like, if you have an idea that you would like us to discuss, you've got a question what you'd like us to dive into, shoot it to us. Let us know, and we'll perhaps bring it up like this, and we'll do a series on it.
I actually have one. Meg just tells us what she knows. Oh, no? Okay. Sorry.
I like that. The comment was, it was on a video about the new books that are coming out that are going to help kind of fill in some of the space between the original trilogy and the sequels. And there was a lot of people complaining about the sequels on there, and I just had to put my 2 cents in and say, well, I like the sequels, and so here we go. It says the sequels are behind them, and in the context, it was the prequels. So the sequels are behind the prequels in terms of storytelling and plot in general. And if you don't like the prequels, watch the Clone Wars. I have, my friend. I've watched them several times. They are fantastic, and I agree. It's literally some of the best Star Wars out there. Totally agree with that. And the prequels individually might be bad, but as an era, they were great and had overarching theme, which is what we're going to talk about. The overarching theme, which was the fall of the Republic, democracy, and rise of the Empire. In the case of the sequels, I did not understand their theme. Could you please explain what that theme was? Oh, there we go. So that's sort of the context for the discussion, where it came from. And so we're gonna start and do each of the movies. So we'll do this in a series of three. Right. So the Force Awakens we'll talk about today. Next week we'll move on to the Last Jedi, and then do Rise of Skywalker, and then we'll talk about the theme of the sequels as a whole. So, um, Meg, good. This is what I wanted to talk about. Jason, what are your thoughts? What's the theme of the Force Awakens as you rewatch it and thought about that question?
Well, so looking at the commenters like question, I think one of the main differences between the prequel trilogy and the sequel trilogy, just to start and get into the Force Awakens, is that the themes I think that they were identifying were more of like on like a macro scale. And I do agree that the prequels have a stronger plot. The prequels were mostly plot, honestly. But what you end up having is this one was more character based instead of so it was more micro instead of macro. And so like the very first thing that I noticed about it is that there is a theme of going home and leaving home. And so you have Han and Luke who don't want to go home. Han Solo has been running from his problems as when we first meet him, and all the way up to meeting Leia, he's been on the run since his family fell apart, since things went south for him. Luke Skywalker also is refusing to go home. He's hiding out on an island. And then you could juxtapose that against Rey and Finn, where Finn is like, my home is broken. This home, I don't want to live here anymore. And he bails. And same thing with Rey, where she wants to stay in that, but she wants to go home, but in a weird way, she's staying home instead of finding a new way there. And so I think they're sort of messy in a way, but it also sort of is symmetrical in another light. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like that from a micro perspective. I think at a more macro level, we see new beginnings out of the chaos following the Great War. So to mirror kind of the things that came out of Germany, say after World War II, right? New beginnings in the struggle for control of that region. So and it got split between the Eastern and Western blocks and all of that, right? We had East-West Germany and all of that. I think the mirror there is we have new beginnings coming out of chaos, and for that, almost like a phoenix rising, right, from the destruction, and new beginnings is kept coming into my head over and over again, and we see that with Rey and Finn, especially, right? New beginnings. They're going on. They're breaking from the past, whatever that was, right? So Rey, it was the scavenger past, and she's on a new path. Finn was a stormtrooper. Now he's on a new path. We see that with even Han Solo, who had gone away and now is being put on a new path again. So I saw that as an overarching kind of theme. And I was trying to think at the macro level and where we were headed as a trilogy as well. But you're absolutely right. The going home, or what'd you say?
Yeah, I was calling it. I was like, well, running and hiding I had running and hiding as a theme for a lot of the characters, and for actually all four of them, really, when you get down to it, and maybe even Kylo to some extent. I don't know. Kylo's kind of a weird one because there's so much implication.
Yeah.
In the Force Awakens specifically, and then also like, and I didn't know if this kind of does a new one. Is this a new thing, or is this just the extension of it? But it was abandonment and belonging, because I think to some extent, like Kylo he does feel abandoned by his family and by the Skywalkers and the Solos, and then Han has abandoned them pretty much and left. And then you have Luke, who's abandoned the galaxy. You have Rey, who's been abandoned by her family, who never returns for her. And then you have all of them looking for belonging together. And
Absolutely.
so when they do come together, you do feel like, oh, here's a bunch of misfits who don't have anybody, who now have each other. And the audience, I don't think necessarily straight up thinks that, but it is so implied that you begin to feel that.
Yeah, I think that's really good insight, because it does fit all of them, right? The abandonment and belonging as individuals. That's absolutely what we see across all the way. Um,
Yeah.
and we could you even see it to some degree with, definitely with Poe. Well, not Poe. Not Poe is probably
Mhm.
the least.
Yeah,
The
Poe is an afterthought in the Force Awakens. Really, he's just
Yeah.
cool.
And I think the original plan was for him to die.
Yes.
So yeah, he was a bit of an afterthought, an underdeveloped character, just a hotshot pilot coming in. He wasn't intended to kind of go the way that his character arc ends up going. But
Right.
for the other major characters, Finn, Rey, and I think, as you mentioned, Kylo as well. That abandonment and belonging really fits, because here he had uh, uh, this deal with Snoke, who's a very abusive kind of leader, and who at the end he reaches out to Rey as they're fighting there on Starkiller, and
Mm-hmm.
says, "Hey, you need training. Why don't you join me, and we could train." So there he's seeking for that belonging, somebody that he can partner with, not Snoke, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Not.
Snoke, and I
Yeah.
think,
Snoke. I mean, when you just look at even what happens when you see Hux and Kylo together,
yeah,
he's completely playing them against each other and making them want to belong with him.
yeah,
Like he has them fighting for belonging with him, and they both know that he's terrible. They don't really want him, but they also want power. And so yeah, it's sort of like the inverse perverted version of what the heroes are looking for, like basically in family.
right, right, and it's one of the things that a lot of people complain about, as far as like Kylo's whole story arc, and where he's been in an abusive kind of relationship with Snoke, his
Mm-hmm.
mentor, uh, uh, his boss, right,
Mm-hmm.
has been extremely abusive, and and he ends up dying. So I think the complaint is, what story does that tell people who have survived abusive relationships, who have survived abusive childhoods, or adolescent years, and who at the later in life find that redemption, right? So like Kylo, we see in Rise, where he gets he comes back as Ben. He heals that relationship to his dad. He's redeemed, and then he dies. Like, what kind of story is that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I really get I really get the complaint. I understand why people are so unhappy about that. But I think the other side of that is that you can see redemption. You see that he does come back, and then the messiness of having to deal with this duality in him, Kylo and Ben, or like Vader and Anakin, right? That duality, uh, uh, that accountability for what they did as Vader or as Kylo, then is dealt with through the death of that character.
Yeah. What you were just making me think about Han Solo running, and he's not doing what he needs to do for Ben. But when he returns to Ben and is essentially willing to die, he says, like, he basically goes, I'll let you kill me because it's what you need. And my kind of like, it's kind of a weird question, but does that redeem Han Solo? The fact that he ran from his son and ran from all of the problems, but then the fact that he was willing to go back, face the music, which was death. I mean, there were two outcomes, and I think when he went out there, I think he knew that was on the table. I really feel like he just did that for his son.
In The Force Awakens?
Yes. Yeah, when he goes out to him, and he lets him kill him, because I think he realizes that when he does do that, he's going to know that's not who he is. That's not what he's really ultimately about. And then that's what he struggles with later on in the next film when he has to do it to Mom.
Yeah, and we see Snoke actually calls him on the carpet for it. And I've seen some really great breakdowns of this. Yeah. So they're giving me a hard time about my caffeinated water. Are you familiar with this? So I got my Mega Mug here, and I use Mio Energy water enhancers, and that stuff's loaded up with caffeine. So normally I shared the other day that I drink my caffeinated water in the morning is because it's got Mio Energy in it, and it's flavored. It's like Kool-Aid, right? You take water, you add the Kool-Aid packets to it, and it makes it tasty. So it's the same here. Mio Energy makes the water tasty, and it makes it caffeinated.
Right.
So they're giving me a hard time about the caffeinated water. That's what that's about.
Send them these energy, guys.
I've got it in my Mega Mug here. You guys can see my Mega Mug from Meg's merch store. So there you go. I gotta take a drink of my caffeinated water. Oh.
Hey, Meg, are we able to buy the Mega Mug again? Like, do we have that is that on a store now? Can it be purchased? Can that contraband be on my persons now?
It is available, and there are actually new colors available. I like the color schemes of the new merch store, Meg's new merch store, but it's based in the UK, so you have to pay all the UK taxes and fees in addition to the shipping. So what starts off as like a $16 mug ends up being over $30 by the time you get it here.
Gonna need the chain code on that one, Santa.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But no, that's what I'm saying. $30 for a mug is, I love Meg and all, and I do anything to support her, but $30 for a mug is a little, on the
I
premium scale.
Gotta be honest with you, Meg. You gotta buy me tacos if I'm gonna spend $30 on a mug, because we gotta meet in the middle on this one. No.
Yeah, she is working on a U.S. store, and
nice.
And I know Kayla wanted one for Christmas, so I would like to add that to the items we order as well. But yeah, so look, I think that's an interesting point about Han Solo, because when he first meets Leia and says, "I saw our son,"
yeah,
he says their son, acknowledging that he really just saw Kylo, right? They were on Maz Kanata's base there. Kylo comes in with his troops. They had that big battle there, and Han sees Kylo haul Rey away,
right?
And so when he meets with Leia again, he says, "I saw her son," and she talks to him, and they have this mother-father conversation about their son, right? And that's that. Meg. Oh, she'd give me a rough time about the elves working overtime for no pay. Look, I've made it very, very clear. The elves love what they do, and they do what they love. It's
stealing socks and from the dryer.
Oh, it's great. But we have that mother-father conversation about their son. And Leia says, "Bring him home, right? Go get him, bring him home." And I was really, I was interested about how Kylo thinks he's too far to be redeemed, right? He's gone too far. He can't go back. and he tells Rey the same thing. Look, you've gone too far. You can't go back. And this idea that uh, once I passed this threshold, I had made this commitment. It doesn't come across to me the same as it does like when Anakin makes the Sith uh, oath to to Palpatine, right?
Right.
To Sidious, where he doesn't have a choice after that. Which seems to
Yeah.
be a thing with the Sith is like once you've made this commitment to your Sith master, you are compelled to obey. You don't have this free will anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Palpatine, like in my opinion, checkmates Anakin in that he's set him up and he's exploited his flaws, and then he presents, oh, and your wife and your baby are gonna die. What are you gonna do? You gotta answer me now. What are you gonna do? Come on, gotta answer me now. And he's like, Mace Windu, see you later, buddy. And like he has no, he kind of in a way has, I mean, he has everybody has a choice, but he kind of has no choice. And like that's the interesting thing about the Kylo situation is I've never kind of understood what the checkmate was. That was sort of like he has to do this thing, and I'm like, well, why you gotta do that thing? I don't really get what it is. And then it's like, oh, your uncle tried to hit you with a lightsaber, so what I mean. And that part kind of I could get why he would be like, oh, these people, I'm out. But the Snoke's Palpatine's sort of checkmate on Ben was never really that well thought out or explained.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Well, I don't think that he's Sith, right? And we
yeah,
see it in Rise where Kylo goes and he meets Palpatine, and even there he's not committed to the Sith at all.
yeah,
And so I think that's where we see um, Kylo isn't following that. He's trying to blaze his own path, and he wants to. You talked about this abandonment and belonging, right? He doesn't want to go back, or he feels like he can't go back home to his mom and dad. He's done something that is made that irredeemable in his own mind, and even though in the Force Awakens, uh, Han says, "No, it's fine. Come on back. It's good." Um, he's like, "I can't," because he's made this own decision,
yeah.
and it's the oh, they're still giving me a hard time about the
Yeah,
caffeinated water.
I think we end up with the an explanation in 9. Not to jump 2 movies ahead of what we're going to be talking about, but it's just that the voices he has these voices in his head,
Yeah,
and that's been plaguing him. And so I think that sort of is kind of it's in a weird way. It's almost like he was on drugs. And he's out and doing drugs, and the mom is like bringing him home, and he's got that voice in his head that's telling him to do these things that he shouldn't be doing, and it kind of almost like it almost plays out that way. But yeah,
yeah. Well, I've always equated it, and the reason I say this too is because there's somebody else who is plagued by these voices in his head, and it's Luke Skywalker. We learn in some of the additional material out there. I think it's in one of the comic books where Plagueis, right, Palpatine, is kind of haunting Luke's mind from afar and telling him that he's failed, telling him that he can't do it. Right, just constantly the drip 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 of doubt, and that Palpatine is doing that. Right, he's giving that drip 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 of doubt and failure over years. And as somebody who has kind of struggled with depression myself, it's like
mhm.
there's this inner monologue that's in my own mind that tells me that I'm a failure, that I'm uh, no good, or that I'm causing things to be worse, and I'm I'm contributing to the problem instead of trying to fix it. Right? Like these are all kind of narratives that are in my head that I keep telling that I end up essentially telling myself, that aren't necessarily true. And
Yeah.
when the depression takes over, I can't distinguish between truth. And so it took me a long time, and I take medication now, and I deal with my mental
Good.
health with professionally, right? I
Yeah.
have my doctor is helping treat me for because it didn't matter how much my family might tell me they love me or appreciate me. Uh, the my brain would turn that around, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, that story of Palpatine kind of feeding that negativity into Luke, he's doing the same thing essentially to Ben, right? You
Hmm.
can't, you failed. And as you said in Rise, he specifically says, "I am every voice you've ever heard in your head," right? So I think that's really powerful from a mental health standpoint, at least through my own experience,
Yeah.
and that Ben can't see it. And like I said, and even in my own life, my wife, my kids could tell me they love me and they needed me, or that they appreciated me or valued me. That wasn't landing, right? It wasn't
Hmm.
something I could absorb. And I think I see that. I see that anyway in Ben and in Kylo. And it's another reason. And folks, look, I can understand if you don't like the sequels. I get it, right? I truly do. I truly get it. But for me, with my own journey in my life, these messages land for me, right? I see that inner monologue in myself, and it's something I have to deal with. And seeing Han come face to face with his son Ben in that moment on the bridge there is a super powerful scene. And then we see the sunset, and Kylo comes back and kills his dad. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's the thing is like there are these movies are oftentimes designed in such a way that the themes are meant to be relatable. You know what I mean? Whether it is depression or like my analogy at first was drugs, and I think that yours is better. Actually, it kind of does make sense, especially after nine. And maybe that's, and I'm gonna give nine some credit and say I think nine just made seven a little bit better for me.
yeah,
With that little addition of that voice comment, you know, and
yeah,
and I don't know if it's just to go back to what we were talking about in the first part, where
yeah,
we were talking about how you know everybody, but I mean it's very obvious that's in the title, and it's like the main theme of it is awakening. Everybody is waking up. Luke
yes,
Skywalker's going back to work. Han Solo's going back to work. The new heroes are getting off their butts and becoming the new heroes, and
right,
that's and I think I think that is sort of marketing to some extent. Like, okay, everybody, Star Wars is back, new adventures, everybody. But you can't deny that those things I think are somewhat in that movie as well, and the
yeah.
title.
I love it. I absolutely well. And before Last Jedi come out, I had big theological kind of thoughts about the Force Awakens, the
Mhm.
awakening in somebody being similar to the Holy Spirit, awakening somebody's soul, bringing them to salvation, all of that kind of right, like these Christian themes. And so I love the Force Awakens idea that the Force itself. I gotta fly. Get out of here. Oh, we got the Force itself deciding that there needs to be some sort of counterbalance, if you will, and that's been the theme with Yoda. A theory, I think, not with Yoda, with Grogu, right? Because
Mhm.
Grogu is essentially same age as Anakin, right?
You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that Anakin was
Might be twins
there. You
in the
go.
Force. In the Force, who knows?
In the Force. Well, and it's this theory of where Yoda's species comes from, that they could be Force created beings. They don't reproduce like anybody else. They don't have natural offspring like other species. That the Force generates these beings as as powerful Force users to kind of balance the one side over the other. So perhaps that's the case, but that's neither here nor there.
Well,
it's not. It's kind of gotten off topic.
well, do you think, and to slightly go off topic, because I have to ask you what you think, is, there's the biblical story of, I think it's Christ in the wilderness, and he's sort of tempted. He doesn't really want to go be crucified. Doesn't sound like
Right.
like a good time
Right.
to anybody. And is Luke sort of stuck in that moment? Because when you look at what he does in the next film, which is essentially sacrifice himself to save his people, I mean, is Luke sort of in that wilderness moment? Is that what Act 2 is for him?
Yeah. Instead of 30 days, it's more like 30 years or whatever. Right. Like,
Yeah,
um, it's a long period. It's not 30 years. I was just paralleling. But
yeah,
yeah, instead of being 30 days, it's been years, and it very well could be that. But it's more of a that's a fascinating question, and it's one that I hope that they explore more as they fill in the story. But my understanding in looking through the documentary and rewatching the movies is that throughout the sequels, and this goes back to sort of our topic, the overarching theme, is there's a constant thread that runs through it. With powerful light comes powerful dark. As darkness rises, light rises to meet it. Right? Those kind of things happen over and over. And we hear that from Luke, and we hear that from Snoke repeatedly. And I believe it's Palpatine planting that seed of thought, because we know that Palpatine was puppeting to some degree Snoke, but we also know that Palpatine was seeding thoughts into Luke through the sort of Chinese water torture method, and that Luke had come to believe with powerful light comes powerful dark, and he came to believe that he was the most powerful Force user in the universe, and that that powerful light that was coming from him was being countered by Kylo, by Ben, increasing in dark, and that the only way to keep Ben from becoming more powerful dark was to reduce the light. And
so his light was casting a shadow, and that shadow is the evil.
yes,
right?
exactly. And so what he did is he fled to Octo, and he disconnected from the Force. Right, that's another important part. Like, he completely severed himself from the Force. Yoda says, I missed you. I wasn't able to talk to you. And we know that Leia didn't have the communication with him. Like, he cut himself off from his family. He in many ways, a sacrificial kind of act on Luke's part to reduce the light. He needed to reduce the attraction of the light so that Ben wouldn't slip further to the dark. And it was a method to keep Ben from sliding more, where he had worked for, you figure, for more than a decade. He had worked and trained Ben to try to keep him from sliding to the dark, but this darkness kept pulling him and kept pulling him and kept getting stronger and stronger in the dark. And Luke was trying to pull him back from that and train him and work with him, but Ben kept slipping further and further away. And in that hut scene, when they come to sabers, then Luke says, okay, I've got to go. I've got to reduce the light. I can't do anything else to save him. I've done everything I can, and I'm not going to kill him.
Yeah.
And so he retreats to Octo. He cuts himself off from the Force entirely. And then the reason he gets so mad when he sees when Rey show up is, like, I sacrificed everything. I gave up my life. I gave up my loves. And my family. I gave up everything that I hold dear to keep Ben from sliding. I'm trying to save this kid, and here you are trying to bull me in, and I'm not. I did this for a reason. And then we learn later that when he sees Rey and the power that's in her, that it scares him, because now he realizes, uh-oh, I took myself out. Now look at Rey, and now we got Ben and Rey, and this is escalating still, and Ben is slipping away. So everything he did was false. It was a misconstruction that he had built in his mind, and I believe it was put there by Palpatine to remove Luke from the equation, so that he could take over the galaxy using Snoke and Kylo. So
and all of this makes the Jedi of the prequel era actually correct. Had Ben been with Luke as a small child with no attachment to mom and dad and to the family and raised in the Order, you probably wouldn't have had this.
Yeah, perhaps. And this influence that Palpatine had from beyond, right, that kept pulling into that teen angst, right? So the story kind of ties into that teen angst, right? The emo kid, and there's a lot of criticism of Ben because of being too emo and all of that. I get it, but it's a thing, right?
Oh no, it's a thing. I can tell you, it was alive and well in this house in 1996.
And you've got that to look forward to in about 10 years with your son. Good luck.
It's I got it coming. I really do.
Yeah, it happens. I love this abandonment and belonging that you kind of pegged into. And again, I was kind of looking at a macro from these new beginnings coming out of the ashes of the destruction, and we see that throughout the story. So I was kind of looking at the macro level and trying to figure out how that is. So new beginnings was sort of how I was put it there. Again, almost like a phoenix rising from the ashes, but really the parallel is closer to East-West Berlin, and after World War II, the division of Germany and the Cold War that went on after that to have control. And it almost broke out in nuclear war many times. Right? We were at the edge of eternal or complete global destruction multiple times, and people of this generation don't necessarily know that. Like, it was very real. Like,
yeah, no, and I had young parents, and they told me, and I'm like 3 or 4 years old. And I'm just like, oh man, we might get blown up at any time. I'm like on the very tail end of that. I'm just like, what's the point? Right. I'm like a nihilist at like 4.
That tells a lot. Nihilist at 4. Oh, that doesn't bode well for your teen years. I'll tell you that.
No, it didn't. It did not. Nirvana, you're speaking to me.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I just think that, there you go. Well, I do have to credit Meg again for giving me this track to use. It's her Hoth track that she created for Meg's Cantina.
Sweet jams, Meg. Sweet jams.
Yes. It was very nice to download that, and Melon has a feature where you can play background music. You upload a file, and it'll play it in the background, so it's working really, really well.
I like to imagine Meg just has this tranquil Star Wars music playing, and she's like, "Hello, Megdalorians," while it's in the background, and she's in like a fancy robe or something, like a fancy Jedi robe.
I love Meg so much, and she's feeling under the weather today. So Meg, I hope that you get some rest tonight. Get your tea, and we look forward to great content. I'm looking to get Meg's take on that Rolling Stone article.
Same.
I'm anxious to see that. Just kind of try to put a bow around this. The theme for The Force Awakens, I think, Jason, you nailed it really, really well from especially the micro level of the abandonment and belonging.
Right.
It's very, very clear, and it fits so well. And then the other part, as I was going for the macro, is this new beginnings coming out, and I was really focused on like World War II and seeing those parallels. So any other thoughts? I want to be respectful of your time. I know you've got a show to prep for, and you got to get Sketchy Rob in line.
Gotta say, stop drawing stuff and talk to me about Star Wars.
And
But
you
yeah.
two and your ADHD. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that show.
Yeah. We
You
just
never know what
we,
you're going to get into.
dope. We just go for it. Sometimes there's like nothing to talk about, and we go over. And sometimes there's a lot, and we're through it in 30 minutes. We just do what we want.
The embodiment, of the Force Awakens is Zuvio for sure. Constable Zuvio.
Yeah.
There you have all in just one character, Zuvio, explaining the sequels.
It's like, where is he? Where has he been? Where is this going? Why? I mean, that's all. That's Zuvio, and that's the Force Awakens.
It is, and I do have to kind of market Martin and his friend. I have put together a podcast. They're going to start coming out in November, and I was interviewed for that podcast, and it's a ton of fun. Those guys are comedic. They got me to go down paths that that some would consider unnatural. Oh my goodness, it was a lot of fun. Martin is great. So
Congratulations on the new show, Martin.
yes, it's really good, and it's you have to tell us, Martin. Put it in the chat if you will before we close out, what the name of that podcast is, so people could start looking for it. I know it's coming up less than a month, and I think they have 8 episodes. I think I am episode 6. I nominated Meg for an episode, and hopefully they were able to wrangle her in for one. Star Wars Spins. That's it.
Star Wars
So,
Spins.
There you go. Star Wars Spins. Look for that podcast coming soon, and it's a ton of fun. All right, Jason. Any plans for this afternoon's show?
I think we're going to be digging back into this Obi-Wan stuff, and we're going to be talking about the first actual issues of the War of the Bounty Hunters. We're trying to like get that all wrapped up this month, and so we're just going to be complaining about comic books for a while on that part, because yesterday's issue, Rob pointed out that there was 6 pages of redraws from the movies. They just redrew panels from the movie, but that first preliminary issue was fun. So I'm hopeful that the next ones are going to be fun.
So Ducky put it in the comment. Look, if we don't get 50 likes, the elves don't eat again. So you know, it's all on you guys. Do you want the elves to get their dinner tonight? Oh, it's up to you.
This music is so much more sad when you're talking about starving, hungry elves laying on their sides. I'm like, those poor little dudes.
And next week Jason will be joining me again. We've agreed to try to collaborate more, and on a weekly basis we want to do these kind of discussions. We're going to continue this. What was the theme? And we're going to continue it with The Last Jedi. So next week, if you've got your appreciation or hate for The Last Jedi, join us, and we'll talk about what was the theme of The Last Jedi in context of the question that we were presented. And you guys, if you would have a topic that you would like Jason and I to dive into, let us know. Otherwise, we're just going to make Meg tell us all her secrets. Mm-hmm. And you know, maybe that's the topic you all want, and then we could tell Meg, look, it's the people. The people. Are you going to deny the people their demand that Meg give up all her secrets?
And we don't mean like that one scene from Goonies where Chunk talks about all the bad stuff he's ever done. Not those kind of secrets, like the Star Wars knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good clarification, Jason.
Yeah, it's important. It's an important one. It's an important one.
It's very important. Very important. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week. And Jason, I look forward to seeing you this afternoon. Take care, my friend. Thanks so much, everybody. Until next time, may the Force be with you. And Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good discussion. I had a good time.